Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gear Priority Podcast. My name is Justin, and today I'm joined by Taryn Eyton from the Leave No Trace organization to talk about why it's important to properly manage your poop when you're out in the woods. We're going to be talking about why you shouldn't just poop on the ground, even though bears do it, how to deal with toilet paper and wet wipes, and where Leave No Trace might be going with regards to poop down the road. Welcome, Taryn. Where are you calling in from?
Thanks for having me. I'm in Squamish, BC.
Awesome. So I think you're the first other Canadian on the podcast. That's exciting. It's number 17. Should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I'm in Calgary, so just across the mountains from Taryn. So I'm sure we've recreated in some of the same spots. I think West Coast Trail is close by to you, and you have some good information on your blog about that.
Yeah, close-ish. I mean, several hours away, but closer than you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, closer than 11-hour drive.
Yeah.
And you're a Leave No Trace Master Educator. So for the people at home, what does that necessarily entail and mean?
Yeah, so I'm sure we'll get into what Leave No Trace is, but basically there are several levels of educator status with Leave No Trace. The lowest level is somebody who just gives awareness workshops. Then you can be a Leave No Trace trainer. That's a 2-day course. And then a Leave No Trace Master Educator is the highest level, and that's a 5-day course. It's worth mentioning that Leave No Trace Center for Excellence just released new training standards like this week. They're calling them trainer level 1, 2, and 3. They kind of correspond, but don't exactly. I'm not sure what's happening, but I do know that my education is still recognized, but perhaps called something slightly different now.
Oh, I like the term Master Educator. I think sounds a little better than Leave No Trace level 3 educator or something like.
Yeah, I mean, master, it sounds like you went to grad school.
Yeah, exactly. So just to get to know you a little better, we always run through some rapid fire questions. So I have 4 here for you.
Sure.
The first one being, what are your favorite 2 outdoor activities?
Backpacking for sure. And then hiking, I guess. I mean, if you want to think those are the same thing, then I guess next would be like canoeing or mountain biking.
Sweet, nice. So a lot of outdoor activities. And I think it sounds like you've been on quite a few trails. What's your favorite trail that you've ever hiked or backpacked?
Oh, this is a tough one. And I sometimes just the answer that I give to this question is like, would you ask a parent to choose their favorite child? Although that's not really a good analogy because some trails kind of suck. I would
and my parents tell me that I'm the favorite child, so it's
I would say like a place I return to over and over again is a trail here in my backyard in Squamish, Garibaldi Lake. It's really popular. It's really cliche. It's really beautiful. I love it there.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I want to go check out that. I've gone to the island, but I've never checked out around the Vancouver Squamish area for hiking and backpacking. So it's on the list. And this one's probably a hard one too, as far as if you could give one tip to a new backpacker, what would it be?
So mine is something I actually learned from my avalanche instructor. It's a mantra that she uses and that I use, and it's be bold, start cold. So wear less than you think at the beginning, but keep your layers in your pack. That way they don't get sweaty. You don't have to stop as much.
That's a good one, especially if you're a backcountry skier. It sounds like you might be. Then I think we've all probably experienced starting off at the parking lot at the trail, and then a minute in, someone's having to take off a layer, and because they're overheating.
Yeah, and I think it applies to pretty much all outdoor recreation pursuits. Like, just wear a little less at the beginning. You're going to get hot.
Yeah, especially I guess maybe that's more of a Canadian thing too. I don't know if they're dealing with that down in Texas, but
I mean, at certain times of the year, and I think that people who live in hot climates, when it is cold, they get cold easier.
That's true. Yeah, they're not acclimatized. And this one's more related to the topic of hand. What's your trowel of choice?
I use the deuce of spades.
Nice. It's that's a popular one. I think if you have a chance, I'd check out the Bogler trowel at some point. It has serrated edges, which is really nice for cutting through roots, and a little knob on top to make like pushing it into the ground a little bit easier. It's a good one.
Yeah, I've had mine for a long time and honestly haven't looked into anything else in years. So I'm not up to date on the latest travel technology.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, a hunk of aluminum doesn't really deteriorate that quickly, and when you're using it once, maybe twice a day, several times a year, kind of thing. Um, all right, so let's jump right into the topic at hand, and that's leave no trace and pooping specifically. You're as a master educator, you're part of kind of the Leave No Trace organization. What does the Leave No Trace organization? What are they, and what exactly is their mandate? What do they do?
Yeah, so I'm a volunteer with Leave No Trace Canada, which is the offshoot of the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics, which is like the original Leave No Trace organization. But there are Leave No Trace organizations all over the world, like in Ireland and Australia, and I think there's some in Asia now. Um, they started in the 70s as a reaction to what people were seeing with overuse in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So outdoor recreation was growing. There were more and more people going outside, and they noticed that there was more garbage, there were campfire scars, there were poop, and they thought, what's something that we can do to help educate people, and like, what is the right thing to do, right? Should we be striving for? So they formed the Leave No Trace organization. It's kind of gone through a few morphs over the years and is now formally a nonprofit. But that's kind of how they started out.
Nice. And like, as far as the principles, I think there's 7 principles that I want to get into. Have those been, and maybe actually let's run through those first. The 7 different principles of Leave No Trace. I think that's kind of the basis for the entire.
Yeah, so that is the basis for Leave No Trace. So basically, the 7 principles are principles or guidelines. Sometimes people get all upset and think that they are rules, but I think that it's more a way of thinking them as a guideline and ways to interpret them in different situations, depending on what ecosystem you're in, or what sport you're doing, or how busy the place is. So they're like, I want people to think about them as guidelines or principles, and there's also like a continuum of behavior from like barely following the principle to like kind of overdoing it that you could see. So there are 7 principles of Leave No Trace. I will run through them real quick. Most of them are pretty self-evident as to what they are, and they have stayed pretty constant since the 70s. There's been some minor rewording, but the 7 principles themselves have stayed the same. So the first is plan ahead and prepare. The second is travel and camp on durable surfaces. The third is dispose of waste properly. So that's mostly what we were talking about today. The fourth is leave what you find. The 5th is minimize campfire impacts. The 6th is respect wildlife. And the 7th is be considerate of others. So there's been lots of chatter in the last few years about like, do we need more Leave No Trace principles to address social media and stuff like that? And the consensus is no, right? That's covered under be considerate of others.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting thing with the principles is, while there's the 7 kind of like umbrellas, I guess, for the principles and like the more broad guidelines for them, I think things may change a little. And like you said, like they haven't changed too much since the 70s. I feel like some of the nuances underneath those umbrellas have kind of changed. And
Absolutely.
I think we're seeing changes, especially with dispose of waste. So I'm excited to kind of talk about kind of where we're at now, and even where we might be going as far as Leave No Trace with disposing of waste, and with a lot of people in the backcountry at some sites getting a lot of use.
And yeah, and what we're talking about today with dispose of waste, like we're mostly going to be talking about human waste, but it's important to remember that dispose of waste covers like garbage, it covers doing your dishes, brushing your teeth, washing yourself. Those are all covered under dispose of waste. But the human waste one is the one that gets all of the attention because it's the grossest.
Yeah. And that's one on my YouTube channel. I get that comment probably once a week, someone asking why you can't just poop on the ground, and we'll get into that. But with regards to the third principle, which is dispose of waste properly, and I think it was kind of a missed opportunity to not have it as number 2. I think it would have been a nice on the nose nod there. What is the recommended way to dispose of poop when you're in the backcountry?
Yeah, I mean, there are 3 main ways. The first way is to plan ahead and prepare and find out where there's a toilet. and then hold it until you get there, right? So that's the ideal for both you and the environment. It's going to be a much more pleasant experience. The second way is to dig a cat hole. So what that means is to dig a small hole in the ground. You want it to be about 6 inches or 15 centimeters deep, and it needs to be away from trails, campsites, and most importantly, water sources. And how far away? They say 200 feet or 60 meters. I don't find that helpful. What's helpful is 70 paces. So just count your steps as you walk away from those places.
Yeah, that's a better guide, because a lot of people aren't out there with their measuring tape and figuring it out. So paces are a lot better. And I think something interesting with the depth, I think that is probably variable on how much volume you're going to be putting in the hole as well. I know some people are going to be filling that hole up if it's 6 inches deep and only 6 inches wide kind of thing. And I always tell people, I got asked that question sometimes, how deep should the hole be? And you kind of want to be in that range, I guess, where the microbes are going to be working. So you may need to make it wider. But I tell people, if you don't feel comfortable stepping on it afterwards, you probably haven't buried it deep enough.
Yeah, and the other thing that I tell people is ground surfaces really vary, right? Do your best. Just do your best, and you're gonna find sometimes that you can't get down that far, and you're also gonna find sometimes, I think we're really jumping right into the gross part of this, that you don't really know what's gonna happen when it happens. So one thing that you can do is rather than freaking out about trying to dig a deep hole, is go and then dig a hole next to it and poke it over with a stick. That way you are, dealing with the mess of cleaning it up afterwards. Well, because beforehand you might be freaking out, being like, I don't have enough time to dig a big enough hole because this is happening.
That's a good tip. I think I definitely have known people who have kind of forgotten that you can just dig the hole afterwards, and it's led to some very uncomfortable situations for them. So that's a great tip to.
And the other thing is important to notice, even super experienced people who've dug hundreds of holes, you miss sometimes. We're not used to aiming with that much precision as humans who use toilets.
Yeah, exactly. And so I want to get into why it's important to bury the poop, because I get the comments all the time, why bears poop in the woods, the deer are pooping in the woods. So why do humans have to bury their poop, and why, and even just as far as just why can't I just throw some sticks on it or a rock and cover it up? Why is the burying part important?
I mean, I think the first part is it's disgusting. So even if you think that you're off trail, in busy areas, somebody else might also have to go and they might discover it. So that's one thing. But the major issue is that in order to decompose, it needs to be in contact with microorganisms, and they're in the ground. So that's an important factor. And then the other factor is that by putting your poop in the ground, it kind of quarantines it from the environment, right? So it keeps all those bacteria and protozoa and viruses that are in your poop away from spreading rapidly and easily around the environment. So that's pretty important. And then also human poop versus bear poop. So, while as humans, we are creatures of the earth, we don't live in the forest full time anymore. And what we eat and then poop is not things that are found in the forest anymore. I mean, maybe if you're a hardcore forager, this might not apply to you, but for 99.9% of us, we're eating stuff and have stuff in our bodies that isn't supposed to be, in the forest. It really upsets the sort of ecosystem, whereas bears are actually doing important work by pooping out berry seeds and things. They're actually actively fertilizing with things that need to happen, and we really aren't.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think if you look at human poop versus bear poop or deer poop, even just you can visually see that they're quite different. And I know from a chemical standpoint too, there's a lot of things that we have in our bodies and systems as far as taking probiotics and antibiotics and different drugs and stuff like that a lot of the time comes out in our waste.
Yeah. And there's one more thing that I like to that kind of sometimes resonates with some people is that dogs eat human poop, and lots of people hike off leash with their dog. And if your dog eats poop that's got antidepressants in it or THC, or even just regular bacteria, they're going to be real sick and real uncomfortable, and it's going to be a really terrible situation for them. So you're protecting other people's dogs when you bury your poop.
Yeah. And like I've heard of a lot of animals kind of digging up human poop as well and then eating it potentially. Like, is that something like how do we avoid that, or is that a problem as well?
It's definitely a problem. I mean, digging animals, whether they're bears or canines, dogs, coyotes, wolves, they're good at digging. They're going to do it. So burying it and keeping it far from the trail, in the case of canines, will at least reduce that. So in areas with high wolf activity, it's actually really important that you do use a toilet or pack out your waste, because the wolves will be like, oh, I love hanging around this campground because there's all kinds of buried treats to discover.
Mm-hmm. And and with regards to, I just want to kind of attach it to the 200 feet or 70 paces, I think is what you said as well.
Yeah.
From water sources. If you're just pooping on the ground, that probably changes that dynamic as well, because it's not like you're not quarantining it from like water flow and surface water runoff.
So like if you think about what's in poop, bacteria, that we all know you need to wash your hands after you poop because you'll get sick. So imagine that now you've pooped and it rains and it's washing your poop into a stream that people are drinking from. That's pretty disgusting. So whereas if you walked 70 paces away and you buried your poop in the ground, it's still raining, but it's taking so long for all of that rain to trickle through your poop, through all of the other, underground ecosystem and organisms that are going to break it down. And hopefully none of that's getting into the water source.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're probably drinking in that water too. So it's kind of this dynamic where you don't want other people pooping in a way that's going to affect your health, and then so you don't want to do the same. The whole golden rule thing of do unto others, right?
Yeah.
And so something that I think about as someone who does a lot of winter camping as well, it's kind of related to the runoff. And maybe this is kind of jumping around a little bit, going on a bit of a tangent. In wintertime, when you are in the backcountry and the ground's frozen, I've heard a bunch of different recommendations for different things, but I'm not exactly sure what the kind of, I guess, proper way to dispose of poop
so this is one of those like good, better, best situations, right? So best is pack it out, and packing it out in winter is not as bad because it freezes and then it doesn't smell as bad. And we can talk about like ways to pack it out. But sort of like, and then like the step down, the not as good option from that is like, understand where you are, right? Where are you on the train? What is under the snow? What will happen if you poop and then the snow melts? So are you, are you in a super remote area where you are really far from trails and water sources, and like, the melting snow will break it down and wash it away into not directly a water source or a trail or something like that. So like, yeah, you definitely, can do that, but I think packing it out in the winter is definitely best practice.
Yeah, that's what I usually do is I use a wag bag, which I think we'll get into in a second here in order to pack it out. And I think I have been to like popular winter camping areas where people are just pooping on the snow, and then I've gone back in the springtime and it's really gross. There's just poop everywhere. So I think, like you said, be aware of where you are. If you're in a popular area and everyone's just pooping on the snow, that's gonna turn into a really bad situation.
Yeah, it's
quickly.
Disgusting. Like anybody who lives in a place with winter that also walks places that people walk their dog knows what this is like, right? When you go and hike a trail in the spring and all this, like, there's dog poop like every 3 feet, it seems like, in popular places melting out of the snow. So imagine like, what a winter campsite would look like. Lots of people don't go back in the spring and see that, but it is like that.
Yeah, exactly. There's one winter where my parents didn't pick up the dog poop in their backyard, and they just let them out, and then it just kind of kept getting buried, and then the springtime was It was really gross. It was just a mess. It was that's a good analogy, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to
I
that.
mean, it's a biohazard. Like,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So let's jump. I mentioned wag bags. Let's jump into wag bags and how they fit into what they are, I guess, and how they fit into the whole system.
yeah. So, WAG bags, besides rhyming, it stands for waste alleviating gel. So they have inside of them these like little beads. And the idea is when the beads get wet, they gel the waste into something that is more easy to deal with. So that you poop in a bag, the gel does its work and makes it smell less and stick together more. And then you pack the bag out. You can buy commercial wag bags with the gel in them. They have a Ziploc top. They often have a inner plastic funnel part that you can put over your bum, so you don't miss. But lots of people also just use regular bags. I've heard people using Pringles tubes in the winter. There's lots of ways to pack out your poop because wag bags aren't cheap. They're a few dollars each. But they are sort of the least gross way to do it, or the way that you confront your waste the least. You don't actually
Yeah,
have to see it, touch it, or look at it.
yeah, they're pretty neat little devices. I kind of think of them as my little like burritos when I'm out like in the desert or something like that, because they look like a foil burrito once they're all packed up. Um, they're and I think I've heard of, especially something that I've heard of people doing in the wintertime as well, is they use like a dog poop bag, because like you said, it freezes, and they pick it up using a dog poop bag and then stick it into like a Mylar bag or something like that, so they don't see it, and that's kind of an easy way. I think in the summertime when there's heat and stuff like that, that might start to stink a little bit, but the commercial
Yeah,
wag bags are pretty good.
yeah, commercial wag bags are pretty good. There are some places, especially in the States where wag bags are required, that they'll be supplied. Or like some places, I think like Mount Rainier, they use blue bags. Same kind of idea. But yeah, you can use anything that makes you feel comfortable. And I know that some people like to put it inside something else. So yeah, like a Pringles can, a peanut butter jar, anything like that. Peanut butter jars are actually great for hikers who hike with dogs, because you can put your dog poop bags in there and seal in the smell rather than having that stinky poop bag hanging around all day.
That's a good That's a good hack. I'm gonna incorporate that, because otherwise I just throw it in my side pocket and just deal with it.
Yeah, and it especially when you're on a long hike, nobody wants to walk next to the person carrying the dog poop bag.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with record heat waves that we're
Yeah.
having these days. So what kind of circumstances and where might people need to be using a wag bag? We talked about wintertime being a good scenario for them. What about other like summertime, 3-season?
Yeah, so there are a few places, or more than a few, actually very few in Canada, but lots of high-use popular places in the States right now where they're required. And then there are lots of places where that's also maybe a good idea or recommended. So the places that they're required or recommended at this point are probably really tight river canyons. So like people who are doing raft trips and stuff like that, or kayak trips, where you're down in a river canyon and you just can't get 200 feet from water and you have to drink it and be in it all day. So that's disgusting. So in those cases, quite often commercial raft trips will actually have basically a container everybody poops into that has a toilet seat on it. But smaller trips, you would, just bring your own bags and pack it out. So mountain peaks are another place. So things like Mount Whitney or Mount Rainier, where it's the amount of people going up is high, and the amount of time that things might actually decompose when it's not frozen is really low. And like the area that people are camping is small or hiking. So like it's mostly places like that. And then it's anywhere else that digging a cat hole is not possible or practical. So rock climbers on big wall climbs where you're not going to dig a hole in a rock. Or if you're hiking, like somewhere really rocky, you can't dig a hole. Or in the desert where things don't break down.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where I've encountered it is kind of desert areas, and then in the canyons kind of in Utah where, like you said, it's a tight area. You can't get 70 paces away from the water because you have giant cliffs on either side of you. So got a pack and away bag. And I always take, I use, you mentioned putting it into secondary containers. I always bring like one of those big freezer bags, and I can fit 3 burritos in one of those with the freezer bag, and that works pretty well. I also wanted to talk about toilet paper, because I think that's something that comes up and something that we've maybe seen some changes with. I've heard of a few different ways that people deal with toilet paper as far as burying it, packing it out. I've also known people who burn it as well. How did those different things factor into, like, what's recommended, I guess, and how do those?
Yeah, so this is one of those areas where, like, while the principles of Leave No Trace haven't changed, the like instructions have, right? So traditionally, the idea that toilet paper broke down was something that people were pretty familiar with, or the idea that you could burn it. And so I'm going to tell you right now, both of those are not recommended anymore. So burning it, while it's still a recommended practice in some places, like I was on a kayak trip on Vancouver Island, northern Vancouver Island, a very wet place where we were burning toilet paper on the beach below the high tide line. We weren't going to ignite the forest. Like, that's still something recommended in that area by the the governing bodies in those areas, the parks and the kayak guide associations. But in general, we just have to look outside. I'm sure where a lot of your listeners are, there is smoke right now. Burning things we don't need to burn is just a thing we shouldn't be doing. There's been several cases of grass fires been ignited by people trying to burn toilet paper, both in the States and internationally. It was one in Iceland a few years ago. Grass is very easy to ignite. So yeah, don't burn your toilet paper. And then as far as like, can you just leave it to decompose? So I teach Leave No Trace workshops, and one of the things that we often work through is like, I ask people like, how long do you think this would take to break down? And people say like, oh, well, if it rains, maybe like a week. They did some research in Australia, and it depends on like the environment and what's going on. But 1 to 3 years is a figure that they came up with. And so parts of Australia are very dry, but parts of Australia are also very wet. So I think that, like, keep an eye out next time you're hiking on a trail you hike a lot, and see if you can find some toilet paper on the ground and how long it is there. I mean, maybe you should also pick it up because that's garbage and it could help. But I mean, like, it can last months or years. The things that are in toilet paper now, they want your toilet paper to be thick and soft and robust and fluffy, and that just means it takes a long time to break down.
Yeah, I definitely, I've seen toilet paper like after a rain, it doesn't just kind of disintegrate into the ground anymore. It's made, like you said, to be very, very robust. And so is it something that the microbes aren't able to deal with necessarily as well? Because I guess eventually it's decomposing. It's just taking a long
it will decompose eventually. So this is another one of those like good, better, best situations. So the best is to pack it out with you. And the phrase that I like, or the term, is using a FOPO bag, so a fear of packing out bag. So lots of people are like, I don't want to address that soiled toilet paper. That's disgusting. So there's lots of methods to do it. You can just wrap the soiled toilet paper in clean toilet paper, so you don't have to look at it. I like to cover a Ziploc bag with duct tape so I can't see into it. Another method that I've heard of people using is using like a paper lunch bag to line the Ziploc, and then you just pull the whole paper lunch bag out and put that in the garbage. And an important thing to remember about packing out, people are like, oh, I don't want to carry that forever. And it's like, just have to carry it to the next outhouse or garbage can, right? Like, unless you're on a really long off-trail traverse, most of us are not carrying our toilet paper very far. It's a couple of hours. So the other option is, yes, if you don't want to pack it out, you can bury it. But it's litter. It takes a long time to break down. If, as we talked about earlier, animals dig up your poop, which happens a lot, now your toilet paper is back on the surface again, where it's disgusting. So just pack it out. Put a Ziploc in your backpack.
Exactly. And I've heard of areas on really popular trails like the Appalachian Trail in the US where there's areas where there aren't outhouses and people are burying toilet paper. And like you said, like it takes 1 to 3 years to decompose. So you're digging up toilet paper and like that's going to potentially last a lot. Like that's going to be there for a while, and you're digging it up, and it ends up being a pretty gross scenario.
Yeah, and if you think about, like we've been talking about packing out your poop, and the like volume and weight of packing that out can be cumbersome. Packing out toilet paper weighs almost nothing, even for you gram counters, like.
Exactly. And if you're a gram counter, then maybe a backcountry bidet is a better option for you. That's what I've transitioned to fully now, where I use the backcountry bidet and don't use any toilet paper in the backcountry anymore. And I feel cleaner, and I feel like better, an easier option from a leave no trace standpoint as well.
Yeah, and for people who squat to pee, a Kula cloth is great for reducing the amount of toilet paper that you're using. And for people who menstruate, using a menstrual cup instead of disposable menstrual products will really cut down on that amount of stuff you're carrying.
Good tips. I think I get asked a lot about this, like biodegradable and that aspect of things. I think that gets thrown around a lot, especially when it comes to wet wipes. Whenever I kind of survey people and ask what their solution is for pooping, a lot of time it's toilet paper followed by wet wipe, but they always kind of say like it's a biodegradable wet wipe. So can you comment on that, on the biodegradable aspect?
So I think like it's important for like, if people, I mean, like whatever makes you feel good, your wet wipes are fine. But yeah, the idea of can you leave them? The answer is basically a blanket no. So what you can do is look into a little bit the brand of biodegradable wet wipes that you're using and figure out what does that biodegradable claim actually mean. So it usually means that they're going to break down, either some of them claim in a home compost situation, which is not what's happening. Like they don't really break down in a landfill situation. So like and also what biodegrade means is will break down into very small pieces. But a lot of these wet wipes are made with polypropylene or polyester. And if you don't know, that's plastic. So they, like they might have some cotton content or some rayon content, which is made from plants, but they've got plastic in them. So even if they break down into tiny pieces, you've just left tiny pieces of plastic in the backcountry. And I'm sure that nobody thinks that's a good idea. They might think, oh, it's not a big deal. And, if we all do it, it's a big deal. But if only one person does, it's not a big deal. But it's just like from a sort of moral standpoint, not a thing you want to be proud of. So like there's that. There's also that the, conditions for biodegrading, either on the surface or buried in a cat hole, are not home compost, right? You haven't made this rich organic mass with worms in it and microbes and stuff. So it's going to take a really long time, especially depending on what it's made of. A lot of them have scents or other chemicals in them that are something that you don't want in the environment or for animals to eat. The scents in them can attract wildlife, which is another problem. So the animal that thought your poop was disgusting might think that your wet wipe is delicious, and that's disgusting and terrible for them. And then also, a lot of people think that they're okay to put in outhouses. And the reality is that they don't break down in outhouses. And outhouses are cleaned and maintained by volunteers or really underpaid people who have hiked a long way to clean that outhouse. So do you want to make their job worse?
Yeah, I think of wet wipes are something that I think have become more and more popular as people want to be more comfortable. But I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around that term biodegradable. And like you said, like that's under ideal scenarios. And I think it gets thrown around a lot, especially if you go on Amazon. Like there's not like it's not a regulated term, biodegradable. It's just kind of like people, like it's just added to a product description because they know that it'll help sell product.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean anything in a lot of cases. And in the cases that it does mean that it will break down, it's slow, very, very long, and it's not in the conditions that you are going to be leaving that wipe.
Mm-hmm. I think it kind of leads back to what you mentioned with toilet paper. The toilet paper being like quite robust these days, especially if you're using like triple ply, like super fluffy, like high end toilet paper. That's going to take longer to break down. And you look at a wet wipe, that just is kind of like next level with chemicals added into it. So just another thing to, I think like you said, we just packing it out is the like you so the Leave No Trace organization it's saying like no questions asked.
Yeah, pack it out. And I think like it's also important to recognize in all of this discussion, like we know that pooping outdoors is something that is uncomfortable for a lot of people and prevents a lot of people from wanting to spend time outdoors. And if you have products that you want to use that make you feel comfortable, that's great. Use them, right? Like if you think a bidet is weird or whatever, that's fine. I mean, you should try it first. But like that's fine, right? Like use whatever makes you feel comfortable, but understand the implications of using those products and what's the best thing to do with them.
Yeah, exactly. Do you use maybe we can get a little personal. Do you use a bidet when you're out backpacking, or do you use toilet paper and pack it out, or
I use toilet
depending on
paper
the
and
scenario?
pack it out. On really long trips, I might use a bidet just because the amount of toilet paper you have to carry gets kind of ridiculous. Yeah, my husband loves his bidet, uses it all the time. I'm not as comfortable with it. It just like, I know that people who love them get a system going. I don't have a good system, so I'm just sticking with toilet paper for the most part.
Yeah, once you get the system, it's good. And I think what I really like is I lose all like toilet paper anxiety. Like when I have toilet paper, I'm like, all right, what if something doesn't agree with my stomach, and all of a sudden I have to poop like 2-3 times today? I'm a bit of a gram weenie, so I'll like portion out like, okay, I get 3 squares of toilet paper and then like 3 wipes, and if that's not exactly right, then it becomes an issue and not super fun. So you have to get the systems going. I wanted to talk about like where Leave No Trace might be going with regards to pooping in the woods down the road. I think we've kind of talked about some shifts as far as in the last 5 years. I think we've moved more from burying your toilet paper is kind of the standard to now packing out toilet paper is the standard. Are there other trends that we're moving towards?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we've talked about, like the idea of using a wag bag was one thing that was like, oh, that's for climbers, that's for river trips, that's not for where I'm going in the woods. And I think that we're moving towards a scenario where like the increase in outdoor users is great, but the infrastructure is not keeping up. And even if we had tons of funding, it's just not possible to build a toilet everywhere that someone's going to need them. And people are going more and more places than they were before. So I think we're looking at a culture shift where packing out your poop is going to become more and more common and accepted, and people are not going to be as freaked out about it. Like we're coming into, broadly in our culture, people are much more comfortable talking about sexuality and menstruation and, like weight and disability and all of these things about our bodies that used to be taboo. And so being able to talk about pooping, we all do it. It's normal. It's natural. We don't need to be afraid of it, I think is something it's happening. And I think there's also kind of a parallel to, most of us who go outdoors now are too young to remember, but there was a culture shift in the 70s and 80s where people went, we can't cook over a campfire all the time. There's not enough firewood, especially in sensitive places. It causes fires or forest fires. It leaves campfire scars. We need to switch to stoves, right? And now we just think, of course, where you're going to use a stove. That's how you go backpacking, right? That's how you go hiking and camping. So I think that culture shift for poop is coming, and it was helped greatly, the culture shift to stoves, by the gear industry. They were like, let's make these things better than campfires, more reliable. Let's make them smaller and lighter and faster. Let's make them use less fuel. And I have no idea how gear manufacturers are going to innovate wag bags and waste transportation, but for sure they're going to do it, and they're going to make it easier for us.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. With I think there is an opportunity for some gear manufacturers to innovate a little bit in this space. I think we've seen some fun options with bidets, but I think for packing out toilet paper and wipes, I think I don't really know of anything that's out there that's just like a in between a wag bag and like lesser than a wag bag, but still a good option for toilet
Yeah,
paper.
but I mean, I think like looking at like Cooler Cloth that Anastasia Allison has developed, like that was something that like a lot of women didn't use a pee rag and or hadn't heard of a pee rag, and her making a pee rag that was actually super functional and honestly kind of cute made
Hmm.
people want to use one. Like like use, like I was kind of using a pee rag before, and once her product came out, I was like, this is a way better product. I will use this all of the time instead of bringing toilet paper for pee.
Yeah, exactly. And some people might still like duct tape a freezer bag, and I know that's kind of the go-to option these days. But yeah, having something that's easier to use and looks a little bit nicer, is more robust potentially, then I think that'd be a good option. I'm going to reach out to some gear manufacturers and just kind of put that in there.
There's there's stuff happening in the dog waste space, in that, like around packing out dog poop. And I'm surprised that like, your manufacturers aren't talking about it yet. I think it's because it's still taboo, right? Like, who wants to be the first company to go out with a technical poop bag?
Yeah.
Like, it sounds like an April Fool's joke. It sounds like
And I know I know there's going to be comments on this podcast too of people being grossed out by the talk about poop, but I think there is a shift, like you said, and it's going to be a minority. It's going to be like 1% of people, as opposed to maybe 10 years ago it would be like 20% of people or something like that.
well, and I think like if you're grossed out by poop, like that's okay. It is gross. Like, but like we all do it, and I think that something that like when I teach workshops, I talk about like we've all been in a situation where it's happened and we didn't think it was going to. And just being prepared and knowing what to do will make you way less anxious about it. Lots of people are like, oh my God, I don't know what to do if I go out and I have to poop. So just having the supplies with you all the time. I keep my, I have a little stuff sack. I call it my shit kit. And I keep it like, so I have IBS. So going to the bathroom outdoors is like, I'm a frequent flyer.
Yeah.
And I keep my shit kit in the top pocket of every backpack that I use, and it's always there. I know what's in it. I know what I need to do. Like I don't feel anxious about it, even though, like I feel way more anxious in other parts of my life where I'm like, am I going to make it to a bathroom? Where's a bathroom? In the woods, I'm like, there is a bathroom almost everywhere.
Exactly. That's a good point. I think having a little kit that you can just grab and go is a really nice system. Just for maybe for people who are getting into it, what do you keep in your shit kit?
So my shit kit contains my trowel, which is clean. So the important thing that people get grossed out about is your trowel should never touch poop. Your trowel is for digging in the dirt. If you go to touch poop, that's you happening with a stick, or something else that's staying there. So my trowel is clean. So I carry my trowel, I carry some toilet paper, I carry my Cooler Cloth, I carry a menstrual cup or other menstrual supplies because, being a woman sucks and that can hit you at any time. And toilet paper. That's it.
It's good because I think that, like you said, a lot of people, the pooping aspect really keeps people out of the backcountry a lot.
It does.
The more we can make it less of a taboo topic and kind of and talk about what different people do in the systems, and because everyone's kind of unique in what they need and what they're comfortable with. I think that's really good.
I took a course in Yellowstone a few years ago, and it was, it was no toilets. And there was a woman on the course who was less experienced and who I was sharing a tent with. And I noticed on the third day that she was not eating very much. And it turned out that she had basically stopped eating on that trip because she was so scared to poop in a cat hole.
Yeah, and I've heard stories like that before. And I've heard of people taking like Imodium for like 3 days straight on backpacking trips so that they don't have to poop when they're out there. And that can't be good for your body. So the more we can talk about it, more we can get people comfortable with it, I think the better. What are some resources that people could go check out that I'll put some links in the show notes and in the video description on YouTube if people want some more information about Leave No Trace and maybe specifically like pooping in the woods and what they should be doing.
Yeah, so LNT.org is the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics, the American arm of LNT. They are the best funded, so they have the most information. They've got some great videos on their website, and I guess also on their YouTube channel. It's where they're hosted, about pooping outdoors. So that's definitely a great resource for you. If you're in Canada, leavenotrace.ca. We've also got some similar resources. They're just not as extensive or slick as the American ones, so we just don't have as much money. And yeah, that's another thing is if you find any of those resources helpful, please give a donation to lnt.org or leavenotrace.ca. They're both nonprofits. In the case of lnt.org, small staff. In the case of leavenotrace.ca, entirely volunteer run. It's super helpful to help fund spreading this important information.
Yeah. And if people want to take courses in Leave No Trace, is that where they would go as well?
Yeah, so have a look, on your sort of local Leave No Trace website. There'll be listings for course providers or course listings. And you can take an awareness course, which, can take anywhere from half an hour to a couple hours, which will go through all of the basics. There's also online awareness courses to kind of familiarize yourself. And I think it's also really important, I talk to a lot of people, especially experienced people in the outdoors, who are like, oh, I know that. And I'm just like, okay, but you don't know what you don't know, right? Like until you've taken the time to sit down and review that information or take a course, you don't know what you might have been doing. I don't want to say wrong, but less great all this time, whether it's to do with pooping or food storage or the way you do the dishes or the way you walk off trail. There's lots of information that you can get from Leave No Trace about sort of the best practices, and also that good, better, best, right? Like we're not going to pack out our poop in all situations. We're not going to, there's all kinds of things that are, maybe too extreme of a behavior. So the idea behind Leave No Trace is to minimize our impact on the outdoors. And the reality is we're humans, we leave a trace. We can't go into nature without leaving some trace, and to be perfect at leaving no trace, we wouldn't go. So that's not a thing we're going to do.
Exactly. And I really like the good, better, best, looking at it in that different way. And I think a lot of people out there, like you said, they might know about one of those within the good, better, best scenario, but having all those different options and tools in your tool belt for different scenarios is going to make you probably more comfortable out there, as well as be able to leave no trace a lot in a better way as well when you're out in the backcountry. So
yeah, I really
like that.
I think a lot of people, there's been a lot of rhetoric on social media in the last few years where leave no trace is almost used as a accusatory thing or like a finger wagging thing, and people get this idea that when we talk about leave no trace, we're talking about you're doing it wrong and you're bad, and it's a way to shame people on social media. And I think that's really a shame because I think that there's so much we can learn from Leave No Trace, that the Leave No Trace organization is really inclusive and welcoming and wants new people outdoors. And if you don't know about Leave No Trace, because you're new or because you haven't learned yet, that's okay. You have time to educate yourself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's okay to admit you're doing something one way and then you learned, and now you know how to do it a different way now. And I think we've all probably been there.
I had a huge realization. So the first alpine backpacking trip I went on, close to 20 years ago, the water source was this tiny little trickle of a stream. And after dinner, I went and washed my pot in the stream, and there were little pieces of ramen noodles just sitting in the bottom of the stream that I knew was also the water source. And I was like, oh, that can't be right. But what is right? Because it takes kind of doing it to realize oh, it doesn't just magically flush it away like the sink at home. And I'm of course it doesn't, but it hadn't occurred to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a call that I had the same scenario with washing dishes, and then realizing that there's a different way, and I still see that out there quite a bit. And you have those realizations, especially when you see the effect on the environment when Leave No Trace isn't necessarily happening in the optimal way. So
yeah,
that's interesting. So I really appreciate having you on, Taryn. That was great information. I think poop is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and I think we covered a lot of ground. I really appreciate how open you were about talking about it. I think that's really sets a good kind of precedent for everyone out there when they're talking about these things, and just not getting squeamish about it is a good thing. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Lots of fun to spend an hour talking about feces.
For sure. Well, we'll have to do it again sometime. Thanks, Sarah.